Look at your phone. I mean, if you are single right now, or, if you've been single literally any time in the last decade, you know the exact motion.
Oh, the swipe.
The
Yeah.
swipe, exactly. You've probably spent, what, maybe less than 3 seconds deciding if the last human being presented to you on that screen was worth your time?
3 seconds is generous, honestly.
Right. It's like a split-second glance at a photo, maybe a really quick scan of their bio, and then just swipe left.
Yeah, tossed into the digital ether forever, just gone.
Done. So I want you, the person listening right now, to imagine a woman who waited thousands of years.
Thousands.
Thousands of years. And not just years, but like across multiple reincarnated lifetimes. And she wasn't waiting for some wealthy prince or an easy life,
Was not at all.
No, she was waiting for this incredibly emotionally unavailable man who lived up in the freezing mountains, covered himself in graveyard ash, and, like, fundamentally refused to even acknowledge her existence.
Which, I mean, it sounds entirely insane to the modern ear, doesn't it?
It sounds completely unhinged. But what if she knew something about human connection, about the mechanics of love and the soul that our dating algorithms have just completely destroyed?
It's the starkest contrast imaginable, really,
yeah.
because we are looking at two entirely different dimensions of human experience here.
Yeah.
On one side, we have this hyper-accelerated, industrialized modern dating culture where human beings are essentially, well, consumer goods.
Yeah, totally commodified.
Right. And then on the other side, we have this ancient mythological blueprint for an agonizing multi-lifetime process of ego destruction and spiritual alignment.
Right.
We're basically talking about two completely different definitions of what love fundamentally is.
And then that is exactly what we are exploring in today's deep dive.
Right.
We are taking this massive journey into the ancient Hindu myth of Lord Shiva and the goddess Parvati.
It's such a sprawling epic narrative.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we are going to use this cosmic story as a lens to look at the modern sickness of, well, disposable love, the paralyzing paradox of choice that we all face, and this concept that just seems completely alien today, which is the lost art of truly actively waiting for a partner.
Yeah, active waiting. It's so misunderstood.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
But to understand any of this, to even grasp the psychology we're going to dive into today, we really need to understand the archetypes at the center of this story. So, set the stage for us. Who are we actually dealing with here?
Sure, yeah. So to grasp the spiritual and psychological stakes, we really have to look at these figures not just as, like, characters in a story, but as profound representations of human consciousness.
Okay, lay it out for us.
First, we have Shiva. Now, in the Hindu pantheon, he is the supreme ascetic god.
Ascetic meaning, like deeply austere, denying worldly pleasures.
Exactly. He is the destroyer, but not in a malevolent sense, He represents pure, unadulterated consciousness. He is the absolute stillness of the universe. And critically, for our conversation today, he is the destroyer of the ego, the destroyer of illusion.
So he is the ultimate immovable object, like he's not swooning over anyone.
Oh, far from it. He is completely self-contained. Completely. And then on the other hand, we have Parvati.
Right, Parvati.
Yeah, she represents the exact opposite, yet completely complementary force. She is divine energy, she's kinetic movement, devotion, and literally the material universe itself.
She's the motion to his stillness.
Exactly. But the crucial piece of backstory here, the thing that sets this entire narrative in motion, is that Parvati is actually the reincarnation of Shiva's first wife, a goddess named Sati.
Right, and Sati's story does not have a happy ending.
No, it doesn't. Sati's death is a catastrophic event. It is a cosmic tragedy that essentially shatters the universe and, frankly, shatters Shiva.
We're definitely going to explore the mechanics of her death shortly because it's so vital to understanding the difference between toxic attachment and, like, true devotion.
Oh, absolutely. It's the catalyst for everything.
And as we go through this, if you're listening, you are going to hear two specific terms a lot today. And they are sort of the keys to unlocking the entire psychology of this myth.
Right.
The first one is tapasya. And this translates roughly to a deep, agonizingly intense ascetic meditation or austerity. It is the ultimate tool of spiritual self-actualization.
It is fierce, fiery discipline.
Yes. And the second term is kama. Kama is the god of human love, of desire and lust. He represents the very fleeting, chemical, superficial attraction that drives so much of our modern world.
And these are profound psychological states that every single person listening to this navigates on a daily basis, whether they realize it or not.
Absolutely. So to truly understand the sheer scale of Parvati's epic multi-lifetime wait, we first have to put it in contrast with the modern sickness she is the cure for, right?
Yeah, we have to ground it.
Right. We have to look at the industrialized landscape of courtship today, because what we have done to romance in the last, say, 15 years is wild. We have literally turned dating into a fast food menu for the ego.
It really is unprecedented. The current romantic ecosystem is completely unprecedented in human history.
How so?
Well, through technology and globalization, courtship has quite literally been industrialized. We no longer rely on serendipity or, community matching or that slow-burning proximity to find a partner.
Right, like meeting someone at the grocery store or through a friend.
Exactly. Those organic avenues are fading. Instead, human beings are presented to each other as an endless, constantly refreshing catalog of consumable options. You don't really court someone anymore. You shop for them.
Man, it's brutal when you put it like that.
It is brutal.
But it's true. I mean, you sit on your couch, you open an app, and you filter human beings the exact same way you filter a search on Amazon.
Yeah, by specs.
Exactly. You filter by height, by zip code, by political affiliation, by whether they want kids or like dogs. It's this completely commodified experience.
And this creates a very specific, well-documented psychological phenomenon known as the paradox of choice.
Right. Barry Schwartz's concept.
Yes, exactly. The concept is that when a human mind is presented with a theoretically infinite number of options, it doesn't actually make us happier or more satisfied.
No, it stresses us out.
Right. It actually induces paralysis and chronic dissatisfaction because this deeply ingrained subconscious belief takes over, telling us that a better, easier, slightly more perfect partner is always just one swipe away.
It's like walking into a massive buffet when you're absolutely starving. You put a little bit of everything on your plate, but by the time you sit down, the flavors all bleed together into this unappealing mush.
That's a great analogy.
And you take 2 bites, and you spend the rest of the meal staring at the carving station, wondering if the prime rib would have made you happier than the chicken you chose.
Yeah, the FOMO is real.
Right. You can't even enjoy what's in front of you because you are literally haunted by the phantom of a better option.
That is the exact mechanism. And what this means practically for human relationships is that our threshold for enduring any kind of relational discomfort has plummeted to near zero.
Because why work through a problem when you can just get a new person?
Precisely. The moment the initial, chemically induced rush of infatuation fades, and it always fades, the gritty, unglamorous reality of two flawed human beings colliding sets in.
Right. Someone leaves their socks on the floor, or they have a weird reaction to stress.
Exactly. There will be misunderstandings, there will be annoying habits, there will be deep-seated traumas that suddenly surface. In the past, this friction was understood as the necessary work of building a foundation.
Yeah, it was just part of the deal.
Right. But today, at the very first sign of friction, the modern instinct is to label the dynamic as toxic, slap a pop psychology diagnosis on the person, like calling them a narcissist or avoidant, and just abandon ship.
Wow. Yeah, we retreat.
We retreat, we cut our losses because the algorithm is whispering in our ear, telling us an easier, friction-free option is waiting on our phone.
Which brings us to the most jarring contrast imaginable.
Oh.
Because we start our mythological narrative with a catastrophic world-ending loss.
Yeah.
Sati, Shiva's first wife, dies. And Shiva doesn't just mourn her by crying for a few weeks, hitting the gym and downloading Hinge, right?
Definitely not.
His response to profound grief is the exact opposite of our modern avoidance. He literally renounces the entire universe.
His grief is absolute and total. But to really understand this, we have to understand how Sati actually died. It wasn't some peaceful passing in her sleep.
No, it was violent.
Incredibly violent. So Sati's father, Daksha, threw this massive cosmic sacrifice, and he purposefully did not invite Shiva because he viewed Shiva as this wild, ash-covered barbarian.
He looked down on him.
Intensely. But Sati attended anyway, and her father publicly humiliated and insulted Shiva in front of all the gods.
Okay, so the embarrassment is just overwhelming.
Overwhelming. Sati was so consumed by the shame, the humiliation, and the sheer agony of this insult to her husband that she tapped into her own internal yogic fire and she spontaneously combusted.
Oh, wow.
She literally burned herself to ashes out of pure, unadulterated anguish.
So Shiva arrives, and he finds the love of his existence reduced to a pile of ash, because of the cruelty of the world.
Yes, and his reaction is terrifying. After this period of world-destroying rage, he completely retreats. He withdraws to the icy, desolate, uninhabitable peaks of Mount Kailash.
The ultimate isolation.
Yeah, he strips away all trappings of civilization, and he covers his entire body in the gray ash from cremation grounds.
Ash from dead bodies.
Right, and that ash is deeply symbolic. It isn't just dirt. Ash is what remains when all the illusions of the material world are burned away. It represents his acceptance of the ultimate reality of impermanence, of death, and the complete stripping away of the ego.
So he literally covers himself in the reality of death.
Exactly. And then he closes his eyes and enters the state of absolute, impenetrable, epic-spanning meditation.
He just locks in.
He becomes a fortress. He shuts off his senses to the material world. He becomes completely inaccessible to love, to emotion, to the very concept of connection. He is the ultimate manifestation of withdrawal.
I look at that and I think about modern heartbreak. You know, okay, let's unpack this for a second, because the prevailing advice today, the second you go through a breakup, is instantly get back out there.
Oh yeah, the best way to get over someone is to get under someone else.
Yes, exactly that phrase. Go on a rebound date. Don't sit at home. We are absolutely terrified of sitting with grief.
Terrified.
You treat heartbreak like it's a sprained ankle, ice it, distract yourself, walk it off as fast as possible. But Shiva amputates the very concept of moving on. He dives so deeply into the void of his grief that he actually becomes the void.
He becomes it, yeah.
And it really makes me wonder, are we losing the capacity for deep, profound spiritual evolution because we are constantly avoiding the agonizing weight of real grief, like by constantly avoiding the friction of deep commitment and loss?
That is a really profound question, and I think the answer is unfortunately yes. By fleeing every single time a relationship gets difficult or frantically distracting ourselves when one ends, we never actually allow the fire of that experience to transform us.
Right, we just run away from the fire.
Exactly. Grief, when it's truly felt, burns away the superficial parts of our ego. It forces us to confront what actually matters. But if we just stay the same, jumping from one superficial connection to another, hoping the next person will magically require no emotional heavy lifting,
we never grow.
we never evolve. We just repeat the exact same cycles with different faces.
So we have Shiva, who is now this immovable mountain of pure, detached consciousness. He's covered in ash. His eyes are closed. He is utterly gone from the world.
Right.
But the universe needs balance. And Sati is reincarnated as Parvati. She's born as a princess, the daughter of the mountains. And she's born with this unshakable, bone-deep, cosmic knowing that she is meant for Shiva.
It's etched into her very soul.
Right. It's etched into her soul. So if Shiva is this ultimate impenetrable fortress of grief, how does Parvati possibly break through to a god who has completely renounced existence?
It is the ultimate scenario of an immovable object meeting an unstoppable force. But what is so fascinating about the mythology is that Parvati's initial strategy to win Shiva's attention, it mirrors exactly how we operate in the modern dating world today.
Oh my gosh, her first attempt is entirely relatable. It is all about proximity and physical beauty.
Pure aesthetics.
Right, she's this gorgeous princess. She has all the advantages of youth and royal status. So she travels up the freezing mountain to his hermitage. And what does she do? She tries to be visually and physically appealing.
She plays the game.
She does. She brings him these sweet-smelling flowers. She sweeps and cleans the floor around where he is meditating. She fetches water for him. It is classic, superficial dating tactics. Look how attractive I am. Look how accommodating and nurturing I can be. Notice me.
And it is completely and utterly useless.
Totally useless.
The mythology is very clear on this. Her efforts are like offering a pebble to a mountain. Shiva has entirely transcended the physical realm.
Yeah.
A pretty face, a pleasant scent, and a clean living space. They mean absolutely nothing to a god who covers his own skin in the ashes of the dead and is contemplating the infinite void. I mean, he doesn't even open his eyes.
He doesn't even register her presence. So she's just up there cleaning the floor around a literal living statue.
Pretty much.
Now, the other gods in the cosmos are watching this happen, and they are terrified. Because if Shiva stays in this deep meditation forever, the kinetic energy of the universe stalls.
Right. Everything grinds to a halt.
Exactly. The universe requires the union of his consciousness and her energy to keep functioning. So the gods decide they have to intervene. And this is where Kama, the god of desire, enters the narrative.
Right. The gods panic. They see that Parvati's physical beauty isn't working, so they decide to force the issue using chemistry.
Which is such a bad idea.
It's a terrible idea. They send Kama, the Lord of Lust, who famously carries a bow made of sugarcane and arrows tipped with intoxicating flowers.
Sugarcane and flowers, wow.
Yeah. So Kama sneaks up to Mount Kailash, hides behind a tree, and waits for Parvati to approach Shiva. When she does, Kama shoots Shiva squarely in the heart with a cosmic arrow of pure, unadulterated lust.
Wow.
They are trying to chemically or, divinely induce a romantic spark.
They're trying to literally hack his nervous system.
Yes.
And here's the absolute climax of this moment, which is one of the most famous scenes in all of Hindu mythology. The arrow hits. And for a fraction of a second, Shiva's meditation actually breaks.
It works, briefly.
His eyes open. He sees Parvati standing there.
But he does not fall in love.
No, he recognizes instantly that the desire he just felt is artificial.
Right.
It is a chemically induced external manipulation. And he's completely furious that his profound spiritual stillness was violated by a cheap parlor trick of the flesh.
His reaction is instantaneous and devastating. Shiva possesses a third eye in the center of his forehead, the eye of supreme, ultimate consciousness and truth.
Right, the third eye.
He opens this third eye, and a beam of pure cosmic fire shoots out and hits Kama. It instantly incinerates the god of desire. Kama is burned into a pile of smoking ash right in front of Parvati's eyes.
What a terrifying visual. I mean, the literal god of romance, the god of the butterflies you feel in your stomach when you swipe on someone attractive, just boom, dust. Smoking ash on the snow.
What's fascinating here is the underlying philosophy. It is incredibly deep. It is a warning, really.
A warning about what?
That true, enduring, cosmic love cannot be built on biological urges. It cannot be built on physical attraction or external manipulation or the sudden rush of dopamine.
Right.
Love that is initiated by tricks, by pure lust, or by trying to forcibly engineer a connection is fundamentally artificial. And in the face of higher consciousness, artificiality cannot survive. It is destroyed. It is incinerated.
Wait, so if we map this onto today, are you saying all of our modern dating advice is basically Kama's arrow?
Oh, absolutely.
Like all the articles about how long to wait before you text back, how to dress to accentuate your features, how to curate your bio to look perfectly witty and mysterious, how to play hard to get, to trigger someone's pursuit instinct. All of that is just trying to shoot someone with an arrow of artificial desire.
Precisely. It is all manipulation of the ego and the biological drives. And while it might work for a second, it might get you a match, it might get you a few dates, it might even get Shiva to open his eyes for a split second.
Right.
It burns up the moment it meets real, profound, uncompromising awareness. It simply cannot sustain a soul-level connection.
Wow. Okay, so put yourself in Parvati's shoes in this exact moment. She is standing on a freezing mountain. She has just watched the guy she is trying to court literally incinerate the god of love with a laser beam from his forehead.
Yeah, she has a front row seat to this destruction.
Any rational human being would run screaming down the mountain, go back to the palace, and marry a nice, safe prince, right?
Most people would, yes.
But Parvati doesn't run. Instead, watching this destruction triggers a terrifying, paradigm-shifting realization in her. She realizes the ultimate truth. She cannot pull a god down into the material world.
Exactly.
She cannot make him care about her flowers or her beauty. If she wants him, she must rise to meet him in the absolute extreme of the spiritual realm.
And this transition is the pivot point of the entire mythology. It moves from a story about unrequited courtship into a profoundly challenging, brutal lesson about self-actualization and the annihilation of the ego. This is where Parvati truly begins her Tapasya.
Let's talk about the physical reality of this Tapasya, because the texts describe it in visceral detail, and it is intense.
Yeah, it's extreme austerity.
Yeah, she doesn't just go home to her bedroom and pine for him.
Yeah.
She takes off her royal silk garments. She removes all her gold jewelry. She leaves the comfort, the warmth, and the safety of her palace, and she walks deep into the most brutal, freezing wilderness of the Himalayas.
She subjects herself to unimaginable extremes, specifically to burn away her own ego, her vanity, and her earthly attachments. The texts say that in the dead of the Himalayan winter, she stands submerged in freezing waters. In the scorching heat of the summer, she sits surrounded by rings of blazing fire.
That sounds like torture.
It's a crucible. And she begins to restrict her diet, eating only what the forest provides. Then she eats only fallen leaves. And eventually she stops eating entirely, living only on air and the spiritual energy of the cosmos. This supreme act of detachment earns her the name Aparna, which means she who takes no leaves.
Okay, hang on. I have to stop here.
Yeah.
Because I am trying to translate this for a modern person listening in 2026.
Sure, let's ground it.
Because we hear waiting for a man, and we picture someone staring at their phone, obsessively checking to see if he watched their Instagram story, crying to their friends because he left them on read. We picture a passive, disempowered victim.
Right, that's the modern schema for waiting.
Yeah, and even if we look at the mythology literally standing in a freezing river for a guy who is actively ignoring you, in a modern world, doesn't waiting like this just look like you're putting your life on hold for a guy who's ghosting you?
I completely see why you'd say that.
Right. Like, in modern psychology, that just sounds like rock-bottom self-esteem. How on earth is this an act of immense stoic power rather than low self-esteem?
That is the crucial tension, and it is exactly why this myth is so easily misunderstood today. To resolve that tension, you have to look at the direction of Parvati's energy and the underlying mechanics of Tapasya.
Correct.
Tapasya is not passive waiting. The root of the word tap literally means to heat, to burn, to create friction. Parvati is not weeping at Shiva's feet, begging him to notice her. She has completely detached from him in the physical sense. She is engaging in a fiercely active, aggressive period of internal self-actualization.
So she isn't doing it for him.
Exactly. She wasn't performing this austerity, so Shiva would look down from his meditation and say, oh, wow, she is suffering so much for me, I feel guilty, I better go date her.
Right, like guilt-tripping him.
No, she wasn't performing victimhood. She was purifying her own soul. The texts say she engaged in this meditation until her own spiritual vibration, her own internal heat, grew so massive that it perfectly matched his.
Oh, wow.
She was generating so much power that the universe itself began to tremble with her heat. It was entirely about her own self-evolution.
Okay, that makes a massive difference. Because if she was operating from low self-esteem, she would have compromised her boundaries.
Absolutely.
She would have stayed at the hermitage, trying to be whatever he wanted her to be, begging for scraps of attention. Instead, she walked away into her own metaphorical forest to become a force of nature.
The psychological translation for the listener is this. If you are waiting for a partner to heal their trauma, to mature, or to finally realize your worth, and you are doing it from a place of needy, anxious dependency, constantly checking on them, managing their life, abandoning your own goals.
That's a trap.
It is a guaranteed failure. You cannot wait while clinging. True waiting, true tapasya, requires you to retreat into your own life. You must build your own spiritual, emotional, and professional resilience.
Right, you build your own fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to become so immensely grounded in your own identity and your own power that your very energy demands respect.
So the wait is really just the time it takes for you to become the version of yourself that is fundamentally incapable of settling for anything less than cosmic alignment.
Yes.
But that brings us to an agonizing, highly practical modern question.
Which is?
How did Parvati know that Shiva, this ash-covered ascetic, was actually worth this torturous level of self-evolution? Because we ask this constantly today. How do you know if the person you are dealing with is actually the right person, or if you were just wasting your life waiting for a brick wall to turn into a door?
To answer that, the myth provides us with a fascinating final test. After thousands of years of this grueling tapasya, Shiva's meditation is finally broken. But it's not broken by Kama's arrow of lust. It's broken by the sheer, undeniable gravity of Parvati's spiritual power.
She forced him to wake up through her own energy.
Yes. But when he finally appears to her, he doesn't descend from the mountain in a blaze of cosmic glory to sweep her off her feet.
No, he pulls the ultimate trick. He tests her.
Right.
He appears to her disguised as an old, ugly, decrepit beggar. And this beggar walks right up to Parvati, who is deep in her meditation, and he starts relentlessly insulting Shiva.
He talks trash about himself.
Literally. He tells her she's completely delusional for waiting for this god. He calls Shiva a homeless madman. He says, why are you, a beautiful princess, wasting your life for a weirdo who wears snake garlands, covers himself in the ashes of dead bodies, and hangs out in graveyards?
He's making a very logical argument, honestly.
Right. He says he has no wealth, he has no home, he has no family. He is a terrible choice for a husband. He essentially gives her every single logical, practical reason to walk away.
He is testing whether her devotion is to his ultimate essence or to the romanticized idea of a supreme god. And how does she react?
She is furious. She fiercely defends him. She refuses to listen to a single word this beggar says. She tells him that he understands nothing of Shiva's true nature, and she orders him to leave her presence immediately because she refuses to hear her beloved insulted.
She holds her ground.
In that moment, She proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that she loves Shiva's true essence. Not his cosmic status, not what he can provide for her materially, not his physical form. She loves the core of who he is, even the darkest, most terrifying parts of him.
And that is when Shiva reveals his true form to her, accepting her completely. If we connect this to the broader picture of identifying the right person today, it completely upends how we are conditioned to evaluate partners. We are taught to look for superficial markers of compatibility. We essentially want a perfectly curated resume.
Oh, totally. Does this person have a stable career?
Right. Do we share the same hobbies? Do we like the same movies? Is there a lack of conflict? Does this relationship feel easy?
We want the person to arrive pre-assembled, perfectly matching our lifestyle, with no assembly required and no sharp edges.
But look at Parvati. She chose the most emotionally unavailable, difficult, terrifying partner in the entire universe. Why? Because underneath the ash, underneath his profound grief and his terrifying detachment, their fundamental essences were inextricably linked. In Hindu philosophy, they represent Purusha and Prakriti.
Okay, wait, explain that concept because it sounds a little abstract.
Yeah.
What do Purusha and Prakriti actually mean for a relationship?
Think of it like a painting. Purusha is pure consciousness. It is the silent, unmoving observer. It is the blank canvas. It holds infinite potential, but it does nothing on its own.
Okay, so Shiva is the canvas.
Exactly. Prakriti is primordial energy. It is nature, action, creation, movement. It is the paint. A canvas without paint is just a blank void. Paint without a canvas is just chaotic color spilled on the floor.
Oh, I love that.
They require each other to create the universe. Parvati knew that her dynamic energy and his silent consciousness were two halves of the same whole.
So the lesson here is that identifying the right partner means learning to look beneath the temporary trauma, beneath the defensive walls, and beneath the current circumstances of a person. You have to ask, does their core value system and the ultimate trajectory of their soul align with yours? Are you both canvases and paint meant for the same masterpiece?
Exactly. You have to ask yourself a very hard question. Are you waiting for a fundamentally incompatible person to magically change their core personality to suit your lifestyle?
Because that is pure delusion.
It is. Or are you waiting for a deeply compatible person? Someone who shares your ultimate soul trajectory to shed their ego and step into the potential, is inherent in their soul while you do the exact same work on yourself.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because this brings up a point that I think is incredibly counterintuitive, but so true.
Yeah.
The right person, the one whose soul actually aligns with yours, will almost always trigger your deepest, most painful insecurities.
Why do you say that?
Because they hold up a mirror to the parts of your soul that still need tapasya. If a relationship is perfectly easy all the time, 204/7, with no friction whatsoever, you might just be hiding from each other.
That's a great point.
You might just be interacting on a purely superficial level. But someone who challenges your ego, who forces you to confront your own flaws, your own anxieties, your own avoidances, just by being their authentic self, the friction is what causes growth. The heat of that friction is the tap into Tapasya.
That is a beautiful way to frame it. However, and I have to say this, we have to be incredibly careful here. As an analyst looking at human behavior, I have to throw up a massive caution flag.
Okay, why?
Because while this idea of enduring agonizing friction and soul alignment sounds romantic and profound in ancient myth, applying this literally to real messy human psychology in 2026 is an absolute minefield.
Oh, without a doubt. It is so dangerous if misinterpreted. Which actually brings us to the most critical part of this deep dive. Where is the line between divine devotion and toxic delusion? We have to spend some significant time debating the intense tensions in this story because interpreting Parvati's weight literally could lead someone to make terrible, self-destructive life choices.
Let's examine the first major tension then. We'll call this the debate of devotion versus trauma bonding.
Let's do it.
The psychological reality is that waiting lifetimes for a closed-off, avoidant partner who refuses to engage with you does not look like divine tapasya to a modern therapist. It looks like severe anxious attachment.
Right. And I am going to aggressively steelman the modern therapist's counterargument here. Because if I am a clinical psychologist looking at this myth, I am saying this is a recipe for disaster.
Right. They'd be horrified.
If a person is not choosing you in the present moment, you need to redirect your energy and move on, period. If you take this myth and project the archetype of Shiva, this idea of a hidden divine god just waiting to be awakened onto a guy who literally just won't text you back, who is emotionally stunted or who treats you poorly, you are using spirituality to justify staying in an abusive or neglectful situation.
You're romanticizing neglect.
Exactly. You're stripping yourself of agency. You're handing your power over to someone who has done absolutely nothing to earn it.
And neuroscience actually gives us a framework for exactly what you're describing. It is a concept called frustration attraction, combined with intermittent reinforcement.
Wait, so by pulling away, the avoidant partner is actually hacking the anxious person's brain?
Completely. Think of a rat in a cage with a lever. If the rat presses the lever and gets a food pellet every single time, the rat is calm, it eats when it's hungry.
To secure?
Right. But if the lever is broken and it only gives a pellet randomly, maybe after 5 presses, maybe after 50, the rat will obsessively, frantically press that lever until it collapses from exhaustion.
Wow.
The human brain works the exact same way with dopamine and affection. When a partner pulls away or becomes randomly unavailable, the brain registers this withdrawal as a threat to the attachment bond.
Which feels like panic.
Right. It triggers the fight or flight nervous system, flooding the body with cortisol and anxiety, while simultaneously making the dopamine hit of their eventual return feel 100 times more powerful.
So it's literally a biological slot machine. You pull the lever, hoping for the jackpot of their attention, and when they finally give you a crumb of validation, it feels like cosmic love. But it's really just relief from the anxiety they caused you.
Exactly. So it raises a highly uncomfortable question about our myth. Was Parvati actually experiencing pure, divine, enlightened devotion? Or was she just experiencing the ultimate cosmic manifestation of frustration attraction?
Oh, man.
Was she just a goddess obsessing over the one man in the entire universe who had the capacity to reject her?
Wow. That completely flips the script.
Was her tapasya a path to enlightenment? Or was it just the ultimate anxious avoidant trap played out on a cosmic scale?
It is a critical lens we have to maintain, because if we blindly romanticize the concept of waiting, we inadvertently give people psychological permission to suffer endlessly for partners who have absolutely no intention of ever waking up from their selfish meditations.
Which leads right into the second massive tension, the myth of the one versus the reality of practical compatibility. This entire Shiva Parvati story relies heavily on the concept of destiny. They were fated to be together. She was literally born for him.
And sociologists have spent decades trying to dismantle the concept of destiny.
Because they argue that the deeply held cultural belief in soulmates, or the one, is actually a massive driver of modern relationship failure and high divorce rates.
Wait, how does believing in soulmates cause divorce? That seems backwards.
Because it sets an impossible expectation of effortlessness. When people believe they have found their predestined soulmate, the subconscious logic dictates. If the universe meant for us to be together, this relationship shouldn't be so hard.
I see.
So the moment severe, inevitable friction arises, the moment they have a terrible year, or money gets incredibly tight, or a major betrayal of trust occurs, or communication breaks down, they look at the friction and conclude, oh, I must have made a mistake. If it's this hard, they must not be my soulmate.
So they just quit.
They bail, hoping to find the real soulmate who won't require any work.
They think the right person comes with no friction. But real, enduring love isn't magically discovered under a rock. It is built. It is constructed through years of shared history, enduring crises together, choosing each other every morning, and conscious daily commitment. It is not about finding two perfectly matching puzzle pieces. It is about two misshapen pieces, slowly, sometimes painfully, sanding down their rough edges over decades so they can fit together.
Exactly. If you are always looking for a cosmic, destiny-fueled lightning bolt, you might reject highly compatible, wonderful partners just because the relationship started normally, without dramatic, cinematic stakes.
Now, there's a third tension we have to address, and it might be the most existential one of all. Reincarnation versus the finite life.
This is where the mythological timeline clashes violently with human biology. Parvati had lifetimes to wait. She reincarnated. She literally had all the time in the universe. We as humans do not.
And I will argue this point heavily. Because if you believe you only have this one short, fragile life, let's say 80 years, if you are lucky that existential pressure forces urgent action.
It has to.
Right. If you want to experience love, if you want to build a home, if you want to have children, while you are biologically able to do so, you simply cannot afford to tolerate a partner who's going to waste a decade of your time finding themselves in a metaphorical cave.
No, you can't.
The concept of karmic cycles and infinite lifetimes. while it might be spiritually comforting, can breed extreme toxic passivity in relationships.
He can easily become an intellectual shield for misery.
Exactly. I mean, I have seen people stay in terrible, draining, deeply unfulfilling marriages, and they comfort themselves with the delusion that they are just burning off bad karma.
That's tragic, honestly.
It is. They tell themselves they're being noble, patient, and spiritually advanced, and that maybe they will get their reward in the next life. Believing you have infinite time completely strips you of the motivation to demand respect, happiness, and fulfillment right now in the present tense.
So we have established these incredible, deeply conflicting tensions. On one hand, the profound beauty of ego death and soul alignment. On the other, the terrifying risks of trauma bonding, the soulmate myth, and wasting your finite life.
That's a lot to hold at once.
It is. How do we resolve this? How do we take this ancient, sprawling, cosmic myth and ground it in modern, practical reality?
To resolve these intense debates and really ground this in modern reality, we need to step away from the snowy peaks of Mount Kailash and look at a highly practical case study synthesized from the sources. We're going to look at a modern couple. Let's call them Sarah and Mark.
This case study perfectly illustrates the difference between toxic waiting and transformative tapasya. Let's look at their dynamic.
Okay, so Sarah marries Mark in her mid-20s. On the surface, Mark is incredibly charismatic, successful, and charming.
But
Underneath, his psychological attachment style is deeply avoidant. Whenever life gets stressful, whether it's pressure at his job, financial stress, or family drama, he emotionally shuts down. He withdraws entirely into his cave.
And when Mark withdraws, Sarah's anxious attachment system goes into absolute overdrive. She panics.
Right. She interprets his withdrawal as a threat to her safety, so she tries to close the distance.
Exactly. She starts overfunctioning to a massive degree. She manages his schedule so he doesn't get stressed. She tiptoes around his moods, making sure the house is perfectly quiet. She covers for him at family events when he won't show up.
She is constantly bringing him metaphorical flowers.
Yes, trying everything in her power to coax him out of his detachment. And as the years go on, Mark's withdrawals get darker and more prolonged. They eventually worsen into full-blown substance abuse. But Sarah stays.
She stays.
She pours her entire identity, all of her energy, into saving him. And she tells herself she is being Parvati. She thinks, I am being patient. I am the devoted wife. I am standing in the fire, waiting for my husband to wake up and realize his potential.
But if we analyze Sarah's behavior strictly through the lens of our myth, Sarah was not actually modeling Parvati at all. She was modeling Sati.
Sati, the first wife who burned herself alive. Explain the psychological difference between the two for us.
Okay, so Sati loved Shiva, yes, but her love was still fundamentally entangled with her own ego and her need for external validation.
Right, remember the story of her death.
Exactly. When her father publicly insulted Shiva, Sati didn't just walk away. She was so consumed by humiliation, so furious that her identity as Shiva's wife was being mocked, that she reacted destructively. She threw herself into the sacrificial fire. Her death was a catastrophic reaction based entirely on what other people thought and her attachment to her ego.
So how does that map onto Sarah's marriage to Mark?
Sarah's waiting for Mark was not tapasya. It was not a period of self-actualization. It was rooted in severe anxiety, codependency, and a paralyzing fear of abandonment. She wasn't building her own spiritual or emotional power. She was actively draining it to enable Mark's toxic behavior. By overfunctioning, she was essentially throwing herself into the fire of his dysfunction, subconsciously hoping that the sheer scale of her sacrifice, the destruction of her own well-being, would somehow force him to cure himself. She needed him to heal so that she could feel safe.
That is Sati.
Yes. It is love driven by the ego's desperate need for a specific outcome.
And just like Sati's story ended in ash and tragedy, Sarah's marriage ultimately implodes. It ends in a highly traumatic, painful divorce.
It does it.
But here is the massive twist in our case study. Sarah's true tapasya, her actual Parvati moment, didn't happen while she was married to Mark. It only began after the divorce was finalized.
Walk us through how she transitioned from the ego-driven Sati to the self-actualized Parvati.
Well, after the divorce, Sarah is completely shattered. Her entire identity as the savior wife is gone. But instead of instantly jumping back onto dating apps to find a new man to soothe her bruised ego and distract her from the pain, she does something radical.
What does she do?
She spends 3 years completely alone. She goes into the wilderness, so to speak. She enters deep, intense therapy. She confronts her own codependency.
Oh, that's real work.
Yeah. She learns to sit in her empty apartment with the crushing, terrifying weight of loneliness, and she forces herself not to rush out and fill that void with another human being. She strips away all her old, anxious coping mechanisms.
She becomes a porno. She engages in active, aggressive self-actualization.
Yes, she builds a life that she genuinely loves on her own. And when she eventually meets her second husband, years later, the internal dynamic is entirely different.
Because she's changed.
Radically. She approaches him from a place of grounded, quiet, unshakable power. She no longer needs a man to validate her existence or make her feel safe because she has generated her own safety. She is already whole.
So she isn't looking for someone to save, and she isn't looking for someone to save her.
Right. She is able to simply choose a partner whose soul deeply aligns with the work she has already done.
It's a profound psychological shift. This case study proves that sometimes the waiting we must do in our lives is not waiting for a broken partner to magically change their nature. Sometimes the vital waiting is for our own true selves to emerge from the wreckage of our past mistakes.
So we have covered mythology, psychology, neuroscience, and a real-world case study. What does this all mean for you, the person listening to this right now?
Yeah, how can you apply this ancient wisdom to your own life, whether you are single and navigating the apps, casually dating, or in a long-term marriage that is struggling?
Let's give you a practical framework to take away from this deep dive. Let's start with a diagnostic tool. We will call it the Tapasya test.
I love that, the Tapasya test.
If you are currently in a state of waiting for a partner, maybe you are waiting for them to finally commit, waiting for them to heal their childhood trauma, or waiting for them to just treat you with basic respect, you have to brutally and honestly evaluate the quality of your wait.
Are you engaged in passive waiting or active waiting?
Right. Passive waiting is easy to spot once you know what to look for. If you are passively waiting, you are chronically anxious. Your nervous system is constantly on edge.
You are checking their social media locations to see where they are. You are analyzing the timestamps on their text messages.
Exactly. You are constantly complaining to your friends about how poorly they treat you, yet you never leave. You feel like a helpless victim of their behavior, and your own self-esteem, your career, and your friendships are slowly deteriorating because all your energy is focused on them.
If that describes your current state, the psychological consensus is unequivocal. That is not devotion. That is toxic attachment.
It is self-destruction disguised as loyalty.
Yes. You're playing the role of sati, throwing yourself into a fire of someone else's making. The verdict is that you need to reclaim your energy, establish a hard boundary, and move on.
But active waiting true, Parvati level Tapasya looks and feels entirely different. If you are in Tapasya, you have clearly communicated your boundaries to the other person, and then you have stepped back.
You stop trying to manage them.
You have entirely stopped trying to control their behavior. You have turned your absolute laser focus toward your own internal growth. You are building your career, you are deepening your own spiritual or mental health practices, you are taking care of your physical body.
Your wait feels stoic. It is quiet.
It
It is internally powerful. You are generating your own heat. You are fully prepared for them to do their own work, rise to your level, and meet you there. And this is the absolute most critical part of the entire framework.
You have to be prepared to walk.
You are equally prepared to walk away entirely if they do not. Your survival does not depend on their awakening.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps most liberating concept from our deep dive, the concept of mutual sovereignty and the grace of the exit.
Explain the grace of the exit.
Waiting, if it is to be healthy and spiritually sound, must be freely given from a place of immense personal strength. It cannot be coerced through fear of being alone. And you have to look critically at what the other person is doing while you wait.
Right. What's their end of the bargain?
In the myth, Shiva was closed off. Yes, he was unavailable. But he was deep in profound meditation. He was doing his own massive spiritual work to maintain the balance of the universe.
Right. He wasn't just sitting on the couch playing video games, refusing to get a job, and ignoring her texts. He was engaged in his own parallel journey of consciousness.
Exactly. If the person you are waiting for is actively choosing stagnation, if they are consciously choosing cruelty or addiction or continuous disrespect, the most spiritual act you can perform is not to stay and suffer alongside them.
Wow.
The most spiritual act is to walk away.
Because staying just enables them to avoid their own tapasya.
Precisely. Walking away allows them to face the consequences of their own actions and their own unhealed karma. You cannot force a soul to awaken before its time, and you cannot do someone else's push-ups for them. Sometimes removing your presence entirely is the ultimate act of grace, leaving them to their own journey while you continue your climb up the mountain.
That is incredibly powerful, knowing that walking away can be just as divine an act as staying. It is all about knowing when the wait is over.
It fundamentally changes how we view relationships. It moves them from transactions of need to parallel journeys of growth. And as we conclude our analysis of this epic story, it brings us to a rather terrifying, overarching question about the world we live in today.
I feel a paradigm shift coming. Let's hear it.
Well, we saw that for Parvati, achieving true, eternal, cosmic love required the complete and utter annihilation of her ego.
Yes.
She had to become a parna. She had to strip away her royal identity, her vanity, her need for comfort, and all her worldly attachments just to vibrate at the same frequency as Shiva. Her path to love was the destruction of the self.
Okay, yes.
But look at our modern romantic landscape. Look at the apps on your phone. The entire architecture of modern dating is built on the exact opposite premise.
Oh, wow, you're right.
It is built entirely around constructing, hyper-curating, and constantly marketing our egos to strangers. We present an idealized, heavily filtered, friction-free version of ourselves. We are constantly shining a spotlight on the self.
We inflate the ego instead of destroying it.
So the provocative question is this. If true soul alignment requires the death of the ego, is the very architecture of modern dating fundamentally designed to prevent us from ever finding the exact connection we are all so desperately searching for? Are we literally programming ourselves to be lonely?
Are we just endlessly swiping past each other's polished egos, completely terrified to show the raw ash underneath? That is definitely something to think about the next time you find yourself with 3 seconds to judge a lifetime. Keep diving deep.